So, I'm about to gavel. Calling our work session to order for the 25th of October, 2016. Maybe before we go into this, maybe we could set kind of the order of which we want to deal with things. I think one of the ultimate objectives is to establish our goals for the coming year and to get those into the City Commission earlier. I will say that a couple members of the Parks and Recreation Committee have indicated that there might be some benefit, at least in some of the goal formations, for both of us getting together. I thought there might have been a couple of people coming, and maybe they thought it was going to be at 7 as well. But in any case, I'll be meeting with the Parks and Recreation Committee tomorrow, and those were two people. There was no specific decision made by the Parks and Recreation Committee itself, but I'm sure that's going to be a discussion item.
Mm-hmm.
And so it'll take some time here to have Pete review with us what we have done goal-wise over the last year, but we've got a longer history than that.
Right.
Some of these things obviously play into things still that we're still working on.
Right. So every so often we'll review our work plan. We do it fairly frequently, usually on every 3 months or so. I think we've been doing it. And what I did this time around was at the top of the sheet here, I listed the City Commission goals and priorities. And then actually, I think.
You got a page 1 for goal 1?
You know, I think I have the wrong version up here. Let me see.
Well,
you guys, your hard copies.
Yeah,
are
we
right
got the hard
version.
copy in front.
So
Yeah.
the right version on the computer. Here we go.
Okay.
Yeah,
There you go.
that ought to. So I listed the NRC bylaws, Article 4.
We get all your misspellings are highlighted too.
Are they?
Landfill. On the goal.
Oh boy.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
No, you can worry about that later.
And the City Commission goals on the right. Now, they are independent. It's a little bit like comparing apples and oranges, and we understand that the NRC's responsibilities are focused on natural resources, and the City Commission goals and priorities are going to be, much more citywide and diverse. However, so where there is a matchup, we've attempted as a committee to show that our responsibility matches a city goal. And so I thought it useful for this one not to try to number the activities at this point in time, but just to keep them up to date. The first sheet, you'll see goal 1 for the City Commission is to maintain an environment for successful economic development. And under that, they list various projects, including the Cove, the landfill, the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, the railroad quiet zones, Beaver Creek industrial lands, incentive programs, and enhancing tourism. And NRC's corresponding responsibility is to promote community involvement in natural resources conservation and various other responsibilities. We had discussed in the past one of our activities that could be related to enhancing tourism is a stream and trail interpretive signage program. We've talked about this in the past, developing signage for improved public awareness of natural resources, including streams and trees, development sites, and heritage sites. And I listed all of the main streams that run through the city here.
I would there's a stream that is daylighted at Hillendale Park. Which stream is that? Do you know?
That's the one that creates the basins up there, right? That natural basins and ponds.
I
up
believe
there.
that's
You know that?
Caulfield.
Isn't that the one that flows through as kind of a lake-like effect to it in there?
A bit, but yeah, it is a
Yeah.
stream for
Yeah.
It goes down,
I think it's Caulfield Creek,
I
Doug.
think it is too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It goes down into Wild Bill Savage's house, the
Yeah.
Savage's property.
Yeah.
Coffee.
And it flows out
It
of-
can't be Coffeefield Creek.
It flows out of the Clackamas County campus and across Hillendale Park and then out of that. So,
So no, Coffeyville Creek goes.
Okay.
Coffeyville Creek comes off and goes into Two's Pond.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's, and it can't be Coffeyville.
I
Alright.
think it's all the drainage up.
Right.
Well, maybe it's not named. I mean, there are unnamed creeks.
Okay.
So
Well, you want me to
Well-
write unnamed creeks and
You had Mud Creek here, and I remember the Savages were quite upset with mud and other things filling up their ponds, because they're downstream from Hillendale. As soon as the water leaves Hillendale, it goes right on into their property. But Mud Creek must be something else, right?
yeah, I don't have these identified
That's okay.
geographically.
Yeah, all right.
That's one of our tasks.
Mud Creek goes into Beaver Creek. And
Okay. Really?
It comes out where that utility line goes across Lynn.
Okay.
Well, Beaver Creek.
It's not Lynn up there. It must be Myers.
Okay, okay,
And Mud Creek goes down at that point.
okay.
So, what needs to happen to accomplish this activity? And I've listed some things here. We need to get an NRC member lead, and city lead. We need to identify a funding
Yeah.
source, identify a stream reach that we want to prioritize first, develop some content for signage, and then based on that, it would essentially be a pilot project.
Right.
But this is a pretty significant project and has potentially a really big impact.
Well, I think in terms of priority is probably the size of the creek. To start with the ones that people know of and so forth, and then eventually work ourselves on the list. So Abernathy, Caulfield, people will know
Yep.
a Coffee Creek because I've seen it flow down the side. Newell Creek. Thimble Creek probably won't be as well known, however, it's going to be a major point of our concern as development occurs in the Beaver Creek concept plan, because
Okay.
Oregon City Golf Course, I
Yep.
believe, is
Yep.
right at the.
Yep, that's right, yeah.
Yeah,
That's up amazing drainage down there too.
so do we want to take a moment now to, it's probably more detailed than we want to go to at this point, but we would want to probably focus the initial pilot effort at one of the major streams.
Yeah, I definitely think keeping on something that people maybe know about and can kind of identify with in the beginning, and so picking a few of the major ones that kind of get the city council on board would be a
Right.
good idea.
Okay.
There's an operative word in there, activities, under that section. And stream and trail interpretive signage could enhance tourism. I work in tourism a lot, and just putting signs up is wonderful, but then having another interpretive aspect to it, it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago I did that bus tour. We all did the bus tour that were on the committee. I've got a different idea now, which I'll share with you later, which isn't me doing a bus tour, it's we being interpretive people, if we can handle it. I'm just wondering, I really like doing something with the stream issue, but if we're really gonna move towards tourism, then we need to interface with the Tourism Development Council of Clackamas County. And I'd suggest we do something really with them that they'll help start promoting whatever it is we're trying to do about those streams, meaning recognition of them, I guess. Just to say enhance tourism, it won't work without, it could work, but it'd work better if there was ancillary things that went with it, like Tour Abernathy. You guys could do a wonderful job of that. Oregon City, Greater Oregon City Watershed Council.
There are points.
Probably a lot of these, but
Yeah, and actually we did a tour once
Yeah.
for
did you?
yeah,
Okay.
of the Abernathy Creek, Potter Creek area.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is a corresponding Metro Active program, Citizen Naturalists. So there is a precedent for that, and an example that you could use as a model if you wanted to see what they do.
Okay. I'm writing all this down. Metro Citizen Naturalists in the Clackamas Tourism.
And are you trying to determine, Pete, a city lead and an NRC lead in these various
Yes.
categories? Yeah, okay.
Just as a conduit,
Okay.
for information flow.
I mean, since we're at this point, I would recommend probably Abernathy Creek be the focus, simply because it's getting more and more attention on the lower Willamette. Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and Clackamas County's soil and water conservation districts are becoming more involved in that.
Okay.
How do you feel about Livesey Creek?
I think it's something that we should call attention to for other reasons when we set our goals, because because of the development issues that occur there.
Right.
But at any point, it crossed. You know, we're talking about the signage. And I don't think there's any city road that it goes under before it gets into Abernathy.
That's true.
So from the signage standpoint, probably wouldn't be that critical, but
Right.
our involvement in it, I think, has to be important.
Yeah.
Another one, although the signage is there, I presume it's county signage there for Coffee Creek where the falls is.
Yeah.
Oh, it may be.
There's a real opportunity, that one, to do a little more of a heritage connection, because Coffee Creek is, I think it's part of that whole drainage that Paul and other people
Yeah.
are concerned about as a water source for Oregon City
Yeah.
at one time. I don't know, what do you think, Pete? The cisterns there and all that?
Oh, the one that flows through Kenema.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's,
Okay.
that's Coffee Creek.
Um,
And
yeah.
then, those three on top are probably maybe some of our more critical ones. Caulfield might go in the top group too.
Yeah, I think it should too.
One of the things I wanted to point out is if you go up 7th and Malala Avenue on an aerial photograph, you'll see that there's almost some forest canopy connectivity between Coffee Creek and Abernathy and Newell. And I think we really need to emphasize the preservation of what canopy's left, especially up there where they come together.
Left and perhaps reestablish, even if we're working with
Yes.
private property owners, but try to
Yes.
reestablish it.
You can see it real clear on Google Earth.
So what do we do here?
Well, the intent of our work plan is partly to develop a list of priorities to present to the city commission
Okay.
for the budget work session at the retreat. And Laura Turway, Community Development Director, is aware of this and aware of our desire to provide this list of priorities to the city commission as an advisory group, so that potentially we can budget for this work.
And this is one of the things that might be somewhat joint for different reason with Parks and Recreation. They're talking about, or we're talking about in that group, there are various parks that we have that have trail connections that take you from one from one major road to another that people can take, but they're not signed, so people don't know they can walk, for instance, through a park from Lynn Avenue at Singer Creek area and walk up 2 homes.
Great point.
And so there are lots of trails like that, but I think most of us might know, but a lot of people don't
yeah.
about the connection.
I just learned the one you're talking
Yeah.
about.
So there are several of those. Hillendale Park as well. You can go from Beaver Creek on over to
Environmental Learning Center. Or,
that's several.
No.
No, Beaver Creek Road.
oh, okay.
Beaver Creek Road on over to I guess it's not Caulfield. What's the road that goes by Hillendale?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That road that's there.
I know, I don't.
And it
Holly
is-
and all that. Holly and.
Well, it wasn't Holly, but anyway,
Okay.
there are several of them like that, and that's one of the things that Parks and Rec is going to be talking about. And from the standpoint of signage and so forth, it's probably something that both
Yeah.
of the
Be nice to.
So I'll almost leverage the program, like they could do something and then we could tag a sign on it too and kind of collaborate.
Yeah, or even if it's different signage, I mean, from the tourism piece he's talking about.
Right, yeah.
Is a part of it.
That would be unifying if we could come up with a design that would reflect both attitudes of the connectivity aspects, and then the watershed aspects. Yeah. Well, how would you suggest we do that? It says over here, what needs to happen, that we would come up with, we would work on the idea of a signage. There's a young man that works with me, but he also works at the Oregon Trail. He's an incredible artist, and he's, you know, I think he jumped the opportunity to do this. He already has commissions at age 20 in the hospital for big hospital art, meaning beautiful scenes. I don't mean people being operated on. Okay. So you know, that if we could put this out just to a process where artists could help us, you know,
Okay.
I think it's beyond us to work on the design.
Yeah.
But
Well, it comes to a budget item, and
Right.
a lot of those things, of course, it depends on the cost, whether you have to go out for a bid or not. If it's not that costly, I don't think it's necessary to go out for
Well, and it has to be vandal proof.
Yeah.
Theft
What-
proof.
What's vandal proof?
But I think
Yeah.
Pete said there's some specific language or something that has to go on Oregon City signs or something. Isn't there something?
It's got to be a city-owned sign in
Yeah.
order to be able to
right,
place it in a right-of-way and avoid having to conform to various sign regulations and
Right.
things of that nature. Once it's a city-owned sign and done with public money, you know, there's a lot more flexibility in terms of the content and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
it wouldn't require the huge, well, the investment of permitting as a city-owned asset. Would there have to be huge review fees and all this?
I don't know. I think it really depends on the number of signs, the type of signs,
Okay.
the size of the sign.
It can be insane,
Yeah.
the cost. I mean, you could have kiosks and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I've seen some that were really cool that were wildlife, common wildlife, common birds, common trees in on one of the Aspen ski areas, and the signs were ceramic tiles
Oh,
Right.
that were placed in such a way they couldn't be broken, and you know, those something like that's not too much, but
Well, yeah, and I mean the yeah, it's difficult to dissuade vandals. We know that, but we can at least prioritize locations based on
Right.
visibility
right.
and how much activity is occurring. Of course, when it's after dark and the lights go out, all kinds of things can happen. So you can't really avoid that. But yeah.
Clackamas County Arts Alliance would I think be a party that we could approach, because they do this kind of thing collaboratively with others. And the other part would be the Three Rivers Art Guild, which is an Oregon City group. If we got them involved, if we were trying to tag, you know, some names to attach to some of these ideas, you know,
Can
I
you
would be
mention
willing to
those
approach.
again? I know Three Rivers Art Guilds, but
Yeah. If we were to approach them, I'd be willing to do that part. I'm not going to work on the whole design idea. It just-
yeah, I'm thinking more. You know, we would have to develop some content in terms of a narrative, or,
Yeah.
and then of course there's a
Okay.
graphic. There's a graphic component. to
I think at the initial stages, we have to be, first of all, we have to focus on some streams, and we have to be
Right.
cost conscious in the process as well.
Right.
I mean, I think it'd be nice to have some feature on it besides just the name of the creek. In terms of having a bird or something, maybe each creek has something
There's
we
some
identify.
there are significant resources out there. There's significant cedar trees. There's significant Doug firs.
Yeah, even like
In Kanema, I know of a double-stemmed, 7-foot diameter each stem black cottonwood. I think there's a lot of people interested in things like that.
Yeah.
Well, I am. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a nerd or something, but
No, that's all good stuff.
Well, if we stayed with the priority streams, whatever they are, and then tried to link in the connectivity trail issues, if they are in those areas, find out where they are, then we've got a strategy for dealing with both those ideas.
You know, one thing as a former preserve manager that concerns me on connectivity is making it adaptable to be used for commuting and that sort of thing, which comes with its own unique. I
Adaptable to
guess
use.
that's outside our purview, but if we make it too, well, I don't think, I'm not saying you could say, well, we're not gonna make it connective because we don't want people to hook up to the spring water, for example, or whatever.
Well, I'd argue that the people that probably do that are probably
They already
doing
know.
it. They already
I
know
bet
anyway.
you're right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I bet you're right,
So I think, you know,
Not
this
an
is,
issue.
yeah.
that we can do anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
if we develop a preliminary idea of prioritizing, at least for now, one of these creeks, Abernathy Creek,
I would probably put Cedar Creek there too.
pardon?
In the top tier, probably put Cedar Creek.
Singer.
I think that's correct. There's so many good places to look at it, observe it,
Yeah,
as it cascades and so forth.
and we have parks.
Yep.
We have parks on it.
And Mule Creek actually is outside the city, but it's to a certain extent. But okay. And
By the way, I really like this layout of city goals and are addressing them. Would tell the city commission that we're sensitive to what they're doing. I really like this layout, the way you're doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Coming back just briefly to Newell Creek, we talked about groups we can work with, and that would be Metro Regional Government on Newell Creek too,
right.
since they own most of that watershed, most of the creek. And it's in the city.
Right.
Headwaters are on campus.
Mule Creek headwaters, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, but that's a good point, Jug. Potentially Metro has money we can approach.
Yeah.
This is a interpretive grant. I didn't even think of that. Thanks.
Okay.
All right. The next, should we move on?
Yes.
The next goal is addressing critical facility needs, including the Public Works Center and deferred maintenance issues.
I think it's important for us to note to the commission that we have supported the Public Works site.
Yeah,
Right.
with the tour and
Yeah, we had a
All
tour,
that.
and then we
Yeah.
actually
Appreciate
sent
it.
in a letter of support. So I think that should be noted
Right.
for the city commission.
We also met on site, which I think you're talking about,
Yeah.
to negotiate maybe a compromise on some natural features to be stewarded, and
Mhm.
John's done that.
Yeah, he did.
I'm really impressed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why does it say here, NRC responsibility, number one, promote community involvement in natural resources conservation? Is that just, it fits into that category?
It kind of fits into that category, and it's
I have
related
something
to our
specifically about that, but,
land use application too.
okay.
Yeah. But
I have something specifically about that, about trying, remember the tour thing never happened this year?
Right.
Just too busy, I'll be honest with you. I think we can make a number of tours happen in a different way. I could share this now or later. I could do it under.
Yeah, let's not do it now.
Okay, well
I
then,
think
Commissioner-
We need to make at least one go through all the goals
All right,
first.
because it is an outreach thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it is.
And I don't have this worksheet exactly where I want it just yet because of just time constraints. So bear with me because you may see some.
Okay.
But yeah, we did mention support and involvement of Public Works Center master plan, tour, and on-site discussion regarding stewardship of resources on not just the Public Works site, but other city sites, such as any of the Oregon Trail Center. You guys have given good input on that for the Parks Department and Community Services Department, so. Okay. This is, goal 3 for the city commission is to enhance the livability of the community. And this dovetails really well with what the NRC's mission is, in my opinion. So we have a responsibility to promote community involvement in natural resources. Underneath the city commission's goal, it includes Tri-City Service District governance, improving transit service in the city, dealing with the current sewer moratorium, and working on the waterfront master plan. So the waterfront master plan, I don't know how much they know more than I do about what work's been done in that regard. Since it affects the linkages between the Cove and 99E and the landfill and 99E and the difficulty of getting to and between those areas, both from a pedestrian standpoint and a vehicle standpoint. And doing that in a way that's sensitive to the environment as well as sort of a way that just improves the area and the visibility of it.
John Lewis had indicated I think the discussion may have been at this body, but discussions have been elsewhere too. There's a box culvert, a large box culvert that goes under Highway 213, and then there's also a basically the train is on a kind of a trestle support, and there's clearance for people to walk under it. Union Pacific and the state highway is not at all interested in having that as a pedestrian corridor, which is unfortunate.
Did we get any? How do we hear that that was the case?
John Lewis told me.
Oh.
Yeah, I know on, what is that,
that's not too
17th, where there's an
Well-
at-grade crossing there is with the current existing crossing, but
Huh.
it's up and away from the creek, right? So staff has approached Union Pacific in the past about that. And hasn't been super receptive about improving that as a bicycle and pedestrian connection.
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
So that's
We can.
it's too bad.
Sorry.
I guess maybe put in the more general context.
Okay.
Connectivity between the landfill site
Yeah. There you go.
and all the way to the river. All the way to the river.
Yeah, for Cove and River, yeah. It's, those huge mitigation areas that were required for the moving of the overpass, 13 acres, are so coming into their own now. They're really beginning to take on a nice look. And right next to them is Metro South Wetland, which I'd love to talk about right now, but I'll hold myself back because they're not doing anything to maintain it, and it's just ugly.
Yeah.
And it irks me. Anyway, that's the beginning of what could be a
Yes.
wetlands trail.
Yeah.
You know,
On the Rassman landfill side, I put / interpretive center because we already have a tourist destination there.
so what do you mean by that?
Well, we're talking about the connectivity from the Rassman's landfill. The interpretive center is also there.
Oh,
we
I see.
We already have
Yeah.
a basis for some.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Well, and I want to then advocate again for Metro South Wetland to be really treated as an asset to the gateway from the north. And you probably don't even know what I'm talking about, but
Right.
it's about, some of you do, 2.5 acres with a trail system around it, interpretive building structure, should say, that has nothing in it. And I think it's time for us to advocate that Metro treat it as an asset to the area. Carlotta and I went out there and she was very disappointed. Let's put it that way. It's not your fault. It's Metro's job to keep it up. All right. And, but it also has a wetland right there with it. Into the Oregon Trail does not,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
So anyway, and then we did some improvements there, which you might have noticed on the debris pile, which has a trail system and other things through it. And
Looks good.
you know, I guess I'd like, my concern is I'd like to see all that work in unison, you know, seamlessly from the end of the Oregon Trail. If you walk the boulevard called Washington Street from end of the Oregon Trail to the wetland parking lot area, especially on the east side of Washington Street, it's a beautiful boulevard walk. You know,
Right, and they've got the station.
the Tottenhams are kind of out of control,
Yep.
but you know, it's very beautiful.
Well, yeah, also you're getting, hopefully we'll get much more foot and bicycle traffic in that area
Yeah.
because of the
Sure.
Amtrak station and the cafe opening up down there.
So what do we do?
Boy, I don't know what kind of priority you want to give this one, because it's sort of it's a city project. These are all things that Public Works and Parks is working on. To the extent that they require the input of the Natural Resources Committee, we'll be sure to bring those.
Well, I sure like Doug adding that connectivity element there, and oh, I see what you're doing. You're updating this. I see. Yeah, I call it the North Oregon City. It is the North Gateway. You know, and maybe that's the way to say it. Advocate for
Okay.
Metro South, Wetland, and North. Well, you did that, North Gateway to Oregon City.
Okay.
To be enhanced, maintained. That's really the issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is everybody in agreement with that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're doing. Okay.
I'm writing in the
I see what you
activities
did.
as you're.
I wasn't paying attention.
But we don't
wasn't
have
seeing
a,
that for. I'm sorry.
We don't have a lead we don't have a member lead on this one yet.
We don't have what?
NRC member lead.
I'm willing to work on this because I'm really concerned about that area. But I mean, Doug, I wish we could do something about that culvert issue. My goodness. Helicopter tours, huh? What's amazing about it, I'll say right now, is that there is an access road made of very well ballasted rock that starts paralleling 205 that drops down in there. It's the maintenance road they use to help build those wetlands. And if that itself could be used for biking, walking, whatever, it would be an improvement over nothing.
Okay.
And we wouldn't have to worry about box culverts, I guess, but
We'll see. Okay. Well, we're doing good.
Could you go to the top of goal one?
Like,
No, yeah, we go back up on the spreadsheet itself. Goal one there. We don't have an NRC lead. That's something I'm going to take on.
wonderful.
great.
Good. Need to do that. Yeah, okay.
I think we're an NRC
Oh,
lead.
so.
I'm not. I don't have that. I don't have that power anymore.
You know, I see the city lead here being, a combination of city staff, parks, planning, and public works. So.
Okay. Yeah, where we can do this,
What's that?
where we can identify somebody if somebody's interested, they can
Yeah.
step up to it.
No, I'm interested in the North Gateway,
Yeah.
all that stuff, but
Right.
whatever.
Okay, let's go on down to goal 4 now.
We'll go for it.
Yeah, let's
Go for
see.
it.
Commission Goal 4 is to seek opportunities to maintain communications with citizens and facilitate citizen participation. Under their goal, they have Ermatinger House, economic development forums, and electronic records management now. Or NRC's responsibility is promoting community involvement in natural resources conservation. And we have listed in the past the Willamette Falls Legacy Project and advancing essentially what they asked for under Goal 3, which is enhancing the livability of the community. So it's not super important which goal aligns with which responsibility. It's more important that we
Is Goal 3,
focus on the activities. In this
is
case.
Goal 3 Advanced Waterfront Master Plan in the works? For
Yeah.
the city?
Well, with respect to the Willamette Falls Legacy
Legacy
Project,
right.
yeah, and the Cove, which is all part of the same
All right. And then we all
general
met
area.
John Runyon, remember?
Right.
And John
right.
has thoughts and desires for other areas of the waterfront that he thinks that the Lower Harbor Mitigation Fund might help finance. So,
Do we pull up the Cove where?
Where did we put Cove?
We had it, I know that, I just don't remember where it was.
I think it was on the goal 1.
Central Goal 1, okay, yeah, we went by that already.
Or that was the city goal, I guess.
Yeah, I think,
Okay. Yeah, we had it. I don't know when it.
yeah, we have it under Goal 1 for the city, and the question is, do we have it for for us to deal with
yeah,
too? And I think we should
have it here.
have it here
Right.
somewhere.
Yeah. Where do you?
Well, it's being listed with the city, probably,
Sure relates to that waterfront stuff.
So under Goal 3. For
Or
the city.
4. Well, yeah, no, 3, I see. You're right, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Continue work with Cove development on habitat restoration.
And I feel really strongly that the opportunity presented to us for the Lower Harbor Trust Fund is so huge for this city to benefit in so many ways. We should include that someplace. Pursue, advance Lower Harbor Trust Fund. Waterfront area. It's actually an economic development strategy, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay. Pursue, advance, sorry. Advance project under Lower Harbor Trust Fund. And I'll just copy that up to the top. Okay.
Okay.
All right, good.
All right, so prior activities we had under Goal 4 were conducting natural resources tour, which for currently, there's no budget for this. So if it's going to be an ongoing activity, the NRC, it needs to make it onto the list of priorities for the NRC to.
Well, let's go over to our responsibilities there. I was asked by Laura Truey to make a presentation to the Citizens Involvement Committee, which I did. But the point is, we probably should be taking more responsibilities in terms of communicating with the neighborhood associations. And we probably could list that as one of our responsibilities. I don't know if it's already there.
Let's see, communicating.
I don't see it at this point. I think.
Yeah, let me write it in.
Yeah.
Communicate.
I agree with that too. It also seems to me it presents opportunities for outreach events that we could do.
Mhm.
which I want to talk about later, but
and I say, and the business community.
say that one again.
And the business community
Yeah.
as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Have we scheduled an interaction with the Oregon City Business Alliance? Would be real easy to do.
Yeah, I know.
They would welcome it too.
Yeah, Ken Ziegler, and he's an easy person to get to talk to and get on their agenda.
Yep.
So what else do we have? We have the preparation of education materials for street trees for distribution to the public.
And
So-
does this include
This is-
Heritage Street things too, or not?
And then, where did we put? Strengthen and encourage participation in the Heritage Tree Program, which Dee Dee is.
Yeah, so we need to
Doing-
probably, since she's not here, we can put her down.
Very good. I like that.
She just texted me back and is with a friend that's having a stroke.
Oh, okay.
So, and I bet you could put her down.
Yeah, she's already talking it up. I don't think she's having any problem with that.
And then, participate in natural resources focused events associated with Arbor Day, Earth Day at city or urban renewal agency owned lands in partnership with Greater Oregon City Watershed Council and Friends of Trees. So,
I didn't include in that and Greater Oregon City Watershed Council.
which I should spell out. Because no one likes acronyms.
OCWC.
So Friends of Trees is doing another planning event this year, and they're going to be presenting to the city commission on at the next city commission meeting about the project status and how many people they managed to sign up. And so that's going.
Is anybody willing to take on that as a responsibility?
What do you have to do?
Well, the thing is, I'm already involved in some of those things.
Well, at least the Friends of Trees activity is sort of a one-day activity where you
Oh.
show up and help plant
Okay.
as a volunteer, and it's good. It's a lot of fun, and it's well catered and well organized, and there's lots of resources there.
Are you having somebody that you oversee the tree City USA for someone really vet carefully the placement and selection of trees?
Yeah.
I'm just seeing a lot of things in the old McLaughlin district that don't make sense. I'll be
You're
honest with
right.
you. And
No,
they're
it's
Friends of
been
Trees
very
installations.
complicated. I won't go into too much detail on it, but we have to get the locates done in batches through Public Works, so that, because you have to call them in, and then the Public Works Department has to go out and make sure that there's no utility conflicts. And they don't like to be swamped with 50 calls for locates in 1 week, so we're trying to meter them out as they come in.
It's just some of the branching patterns I've seen on stuff just doesn't make sense. It's people with cars are getting, and they're brand new trees.
Yeah.
Just within 2 years.
Mhm.
Just thought I'd mention.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a 2-year monitoring and maintenance period that Friends of Trees manages, so they go and they help educate the homeowner
Okay.
about how to do it, and how
Okay.
properly to prune, and how to water, and all those things, which is not
Okay.
something staff has the resources to do, which is why it's so important we get a group like Friends of Trees doing
Right.
this. So,
I mean, I'd be willing to, if I have the ability to try to do something like that if needs be.
well, if you want to show up, that would be great. And then I should mention that they do want to do this on a yearly basis rather than having to redo the contract every year. They'd like to do it on a much more,
Consistent,
predictable,
yeah.
long-term basis. And Public Works is interested in them doing shade needing areas outside of right-of-ways as well. So there's some Public Works money available for that as a different project. What funds this is the Tree Mitigation Fund, which varies depending on how much
All
tree.
the permits and stuff,
Yeah.
development fees, yeah.
This year, there's quite a bit left in the budget because we had some significant tree removal associated with the Oregon City School District Transportation Project. And so they did a lot of mitigation fund. Anyway, so that is, it's a source of revenue, but it's not easy to predict how constant it
Yeah, I
is.
can imagine.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, those,
So goal 4, NRC, okay, and then we had also, the next one, NRC's responsibility, initiate recommendations to the comprehensive plan, codes, and policies. And I think this, Doug, is where you may want to talk about the discussion that we've been having about the need to update
right,
water resource inventories.
right.
Yeah.
And so,
Mm.
so I think we need to list that as such. And,
Right.
I made a present, happened to be at a city commission meeting when they were reviewing the master plans, the 3 master plans, and I actually went up and spoke, indicating the need to update the water resource inventory. The inventory, I think, was pointed out at our last meeting, dated back to 1999. We have, of course, people in the Kanema
Yep.
Neighborhood Association concerned about
Yeah.
certain things that didn't make the list, and
Right.
they've already been identified by the state. But as we're going in above Lacey Creek and so forth, in terms of development, I think it's
Right.
critical that be looked at. So I think specifically an update of the 1999 water resource inventory.
So that's the
And
is it the
wetland
local
inventory.
wetland in-
What? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
The state accepted local wetland inventory is what we base a lot of our review on, and it states that only the city commission can amend the adopted map. And so what happens from time to time is a development project will have a wetland because of existing conditions have changed. And the city code states that if a wetland is discovered that is outside the buffer area of a adopted wetland, then the state's regulations will apply to it, but the city's regulations won't. There is a exception to that if it's partially in or touching the city buffer, then the city buffer will go around that newly
Be
discovered
applied,
wetland,
yeah.
which is a 50-foot buffer. And the
Is
state
this the
doesn't
case in
include a 50.
Kanema right now?
Right, yeah, and it wasn't, like as Doug said, the 1999 inventory didn't show this wetland. And it wasn't shown under the old water resource overlay district, which was amended in 2010. So it was essentially missed. It's a wetland. It doesn't have a buffer associated with it, and so there's no analysis of impact. The developer can't build in the wetland, but they can essentially build right up to the edge of it. And that's the difference. And they don't have to do an impact analysis unless they're actually in the wetland. The city's impact analysis applies outside of the wetland in the buffer. So, anyway, and that does crop up from time to time. But in this instance, it was incredibly visible, and the developer did some preliminary site work where he didn't do ground disturbance, but he scraped off the weeds and brush that was there. And so that's what happened. And he got cited by the state for disturbance without a permit. And then, having done a full delineation, which was submitted to the city and not through a land use process, but having done the delineation, it was clear that it met all of the wetland criteria, which you all know about. And then I think there was a presentation here with some photographs and things like that of what had happened that day. So, underscoring the need to update the inventory. How that is typically done is through a legislative process, which can be submitted by a private landowner or by the city. But it has to be based on a planning commission recommendation and a city council approval. Well, the next
The
one.
Water Resource Overlay District and wetlands delineation, so forth, that you were requesting. I wonder where the city stands. How many EFU lands do you have, exclusive farm use?
Not in the city, we don't, because
None?
we're in the urban growth boundary.
Okay.
Yeah. EFU lands, there may be pre-existing farm uses in the city, but they're not zoned EFU. They may be.
So you zone
yeah.
nothing EFU?
Right.
Okay, because
They
you're.
they
within
may be
urban
future
growth
urban,
boundaries, city
because we have a
boundaries. Okay.
city-county urban growth management agreement where there's a future urban 10-acre zone applied by the county within the area between the city limit and the urban growth boundary. It says you can't subdivide into less than 10 acres. Sometimes there's
In the county.
in the county, right. And that's it's a holding zone until urban services can be provided to that area based on the urban growth boundary that has been expanded to incorporate that.
Okay.
Then annexation occurs. Once annexation occurs, it receives a city zone, but it can't fully develop because there's no sewer, there yet, and that sort of thing. So,
Is there anything as a planner you see people reacting to routinely that brings up concerns that you think we could address
absolutely.
with some adjustment in code?
We hear routinely from members of the Planning Commission and the public about preemptive tree removal. And
Preemptive tree removal.
that's not something the city can regulate because it's in the county, and the county has done a lot of work with the public attempting to address tree removal within urban growth boundaries on private land. And it's been very difficult for them to regulate, because the area, how do I put this? The Oregon Forest Practices Act says that if a city is going to apply, mitigation for properties that are timberland, we have to adopt the whole code and manage it that way.
Yeah.
And so most cities are like, well, we can't do that. The alternative is to do there are many alternatives. You can do what Lake Oswego has done, which is to have a look-back policy for all annexations. It requires mitigation if you have removed trees within, I think, 4 to 5 years of your annexation application. And then it becomes a discretionary decision of the city council to require that developer to do a certain amount of mitigation if they want to get annexed into the city. It also tells a prospective applicant for annexation that they need to think hard before just going in and clear cutting
But we
before.
don't have that in Oregon City.
We do not have that.
Because
We
I know there was
discussed
discussion
this
at one point.
in 2007, I believe, and we
Yeah.
actually looked at the Lake Oswego policy and we talked about it with the Natural Resources Committee and Planning Commission and City Council, but it didn't go anywhere at that time.
Well, I would suggest that then this becomes something that we list.
Yes, and I think we should too.
At where, I'm not sure, but,
Yeah.
Well, I think it probably go.
I
Sure.
believe- yeah.
that's fine.
I remember that time.
It's
well.
called,
Remember
the
that
Lake
time.
Oswego policy is called the Natural Resources Annexation Policy.
Okay, don't put Lake Oswego on there.
No. And Paul Espy, who is a city planning commissioner, is a planner at Lake Oswego, so he's
He's
very
also
familiar
running
with
for city
this.
commission position.
And also running for city commission, right. So,
So he was in charge of that at that time?
well, he's, as a planner for the city,
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
that's
very
right. I heard-
familiar
I heard
with
you
it.
was
very
in that, yeah.
familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think we should look at that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thing that just comes to your mind?
Boy, if, for the
That
UGB
you hear
area.
about routinely having to respond as a planner.
Well, I think it has to do with what we call Goal 5 inventories in general, which are related to update, if you do an update to a water resource inventory, that is a Goal 5 inventory. It's typically done with periodic review, and
Okay.
cities are not at this time doing regular periodic reviews, every 5 years,
Yep.
the way the old land use laws were intended to operate. They do them constantly for a specific reason. So we do, not Goal 5 inventories, but, whenever we amend our comprehensive plan, it's a legislative amendment to our comprehensive plan for sewer, water, public facilities, whatever. This has not been done since 2004.
And we
So-
participated in that. This committee participated in that, remember?
Yeah,
So I would
Marcia,
just say,
Chairman.
be aware that, this is essentially a Goal 5 process. And it has to
Okay.
conform to Goal 5 of statewide land use planning act.
You want to add that in there? Is that
Yeah, I
your
just
concern?
added in.
Good.
Okay.
He's doing it.
Oh,
Well,
I'm
keep your
sorry.
eye on the,
Well,
keep your eye on the
I'll tell you,
screen.
I'll be honest with you. I got a
Typing
different
it in.
kind of hand medication
You're doing
that's
it.
shrinking my pupils, which is what I wanted to do.
Mm.
But when I look at this, wow,
No.
I could see better than I thought. Actually, thank you. I can see better.
I'm sure the other drivers.
He's writing all this stuff in as we're going.
Okay, all right.
The other thing is, it's called Goal 5 on the state level, but at the metro and city level, these are called Title 13 and Title 3 resources under the Metro Code. So we're a metro city.
Yes.
So our natural resources overlay district has to be in compliance with Metro Title 3 and Title 13. So
Is it?
it is.
Well, and we exceed it in some
Okay.
areas.
Do we
Our
exceed it?
our buffers on some monitoring streams exceed it. I think they have 50 feet, we have 200.
Good.
Right, because we matched up the overlay zones and applied one joint zone that
Okay.
affects. What our code doesn't do is, and which most cities struggle with, is that your upland habitat areas are your areas where you develop land. So it's incredibly difficult to go back after development's happened and try to encourage people to use habitat-friendly development and not fence their yards in and allow for proper bird and migratory habitat and all these kinds of things.
Right.
Urban, it's urban. And it takes lots of money to buy land to create natural resource corridors in upland areas in the urban area. It's a challenge. So upland habitat is a challenge. But that said, if there are ways to enhance it, is through the habitat-friendly development practices that Metro puts out brochures about, educating the public about when they live next door to a stream or a natural area and using native species for landscaping and those kinds of things, and encouraging that. And enhancing forest canopy throughout the urban area and improving it. So.
It's the connectivity advocacy component for wildlife
Right.
that you're talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which isn't addressed in the code.
It's, right, the code is a regulatory piece of,
Right.
it affects development review. There's a separate component to Title 13, which is all about incentives and incentives in education. And I
Sure.
don't think the city has a lot of resources to do that side of the work. We'd like to, but that's a challenge.
We have plenty of skunk and raccoon and possum habitat in the city.
Do you want to list that as an issue?
Yeah.
I think it's something that's important.
So I'm going to write, what did I say? Enhancement and education for habitat improvement. Okay.
Now, do we still have density transfers that would permit
In-
set-asides?
We have an on-site density transfer provision in the Natural Resources Code, and I need to do a presentation for you all about that. No one has used that provision since it was adopted.
Wow. No one's used it?
Pardon?
Well, one, and I regret to say I was on the commission at the time and brought up something and it torpedoed one that we were going to have along, I believe it was, not on one of the roads there where a person was going to actually reduce the density and have a grove reserved. And we voted against it, and it was a mistake.
Yeah, no, that was the Thayer Road one.
Yeah, that Fair Road one.
Their road estates,
Right.
right?
And it was a variance request for lot width. The housing type was a permitted use. The developer at the time had proposed 2 pretty good sized tree stands to be preserved, but in order to make up the difference, he asked for a variance in lot width, which went to the planning commission and it ultimately got denied. And then he came back and did a regular subdivision, which I think you are all aware of. And because we don't, this is the other thing I was just about to talk about, because our tree protection code does not mandate protection, it requires in higher amounts of mitigation for trees. That's what the developer did.
Select them all.
Took them out, essentially it was a timber harvest, and then the 4 of the 6 tax lots were in forest tax deferral already, still, even though it had not been managed as a timber stand for a significant amount of time. And under the code at that time, it was permitted to have an alternative mitigation approach. It still had to replant a lot of trees, and the ultimate calculation was 300 something inches of additional tree caliper mitigation requirements, which we are follow through all the way to certificates of occupancy on the individual buildings in the subdivision. And it's been a challenge to administer that.
Not bad.
Because it was a combination of upsized street trees, 3 to 4 inch street trees along Thayer, as well as on-lot plantings with restrictive covenants on the lots for all of the trees that got planted on the lots. Ultimately, you know, that's backyard canopy that isn't Douglas fir canopy, and so you know, and those lots get sold. Different owner doesn't like the tree, takes it out. Code enforcement comes in. City says, well, we have a restrictive covenant. You have to plant that tree back. But the trouble with administering this is that you only find out about the tree removal after it happens,
Yeah.
and you've lost that canopy. That's my fear. If they read their title report, they know that that tree's protected. But there's, you know, it's not like we send monthly
notices you can't
news-
cut down these
you-
trees. Yeah.
You bought a home in the subdivision, you can't cut the tree down. We don't do that.
Yeah.
So, but they are protected and they do have to be replaced. So, and when you go through that subdivision now, which is almost built out, you can see all of the difference that the plantings have made. It's a significant amount of trees, deciduous trees.
How do you suggest that this could be remedied?
Oh, well, sorry, what I was gonna say, I don't have much time left, but, tree protection code has come up from time to time, planning commission, as not having enough protective capacity. And the reason why it has not moved forward in the past is because we've been hesitant or not willing politically, or don't have the staff resources to mandate tree protection on private residential lots with the resources we have. We don't have a forester on staff and that sort of thing. And
Any incentive
it's a
components?
property tax, property rights issue as well. And, you know, if we were to do that, again, it would be a legislative process. It would be public hearings, and you would hear a significant amount of testimony on both sides of the issue. And ultimately, it would go one way or the other. But it's a consideration, and I know it's near and dear to the hearts of some of our planning commissioners. Yeah. But on the flip side of it, administering that would make it very, very difficult to develop land in a flexible manner with the process that we currently have, which allows for
Mitigation.
all of the other development codes to work well and then get the mitigation. So, I mean, my recommendation as staff is to be very, very careful when you're doing that type of thing, because you're moving towards a permit process where you have a type 1 permit and a type 2 permit, and usually you need a staff of at least one person to administer that kind of program in a city our size. Yeah.
So, should we
So,
put something in
it's
there
up to you all.
addressing this, or?
You can put it down if you think it's worth looking at. Am I hearing a?
I think so. I'm gonna suggest that you put it underneath the consider natural resource
Okay.
annexation policy, because anything we do would probably have although we're biggest impact on new lands coming in. I think we're interested in,
Yeah, and on those lands, getting consideration.
not necessarily tie them together.
Yeah.
What, could you go back to what you wrote? And consider tree amendments.
Tree,
Do we want to say upland tree amendments, or bring that out, or not?
tree protection code amendments and tree protection and upland habitat
Yeah, that'd be good.
code amendment.
Sounds good.
Okay, the next one.
Review NRC meeting agendas with staff prior to meetings with timeframes. Okay, ongoing activity. Maintain and update list of NRC priorities to share with Planning Commission and City Commission. That's what we're doing. I was gonna take out some of this numbering, but we can put it back here. Provide updates and annual reports about the NRC to the NRC's accomplishments and recommendations to the City Commission.
Well, I'll tell you this, excuse me, I'm sorry. This thing is really valuable.
Yeah,
To show a
I
history
was
of what we've done.
surprised.
I mean,
I didn't
I
realize
hope
until I
the
put that
commission can see
together.
this. That's really good work you did, because it's a long-term commitment of involvement
Yeah, I mean,
and
it's
response.
not, it's a.
And
it's a
working with
lot
you,
of
this is
work.
really good.
Scheduled joint meeting with PrAC to develop working relationship and develop budget support for joint projects. And this was tentatively in August.
Well, we might be having something, depending on how the meeting goes in terms of even the work session, so.
Okay,
But don't put that in there at this point.
right. Scheduled joint meeting with Planning Commission when needed to develop to continue working relationship. Yeah, so, especially with new members on all these commissions, this is important.
And you might just simply,
What's that?
well, there, right in that slot there, indicating that some of the items mentioned above might be appropriate topics to discuss.
Mm. Yeah. Oh yeah, under
Well,
NRC responsibility too.
right.
Right. Okay.
I mean, the planning commission is so driven by things that are coming before them. In some of these cases, we might have to be the instigator of the meeting, that is actually
think so.
request a meeting on
Yeah.
our, on our own.
Yeah, kind of get that spark going.
Yeah.
Right, right. Such as the waterfront plan, that's the kind of thing that
Waterfront
they would,
plan.
they would respond well to.
Yeah, well, with the annexations, that we're currently reviewing 3 annexation proposals. The golf course, which is within the Beaver Creek Road concept plan, two very large annexations in Park Place.
What meeting is it?
Pardon?
What meeting is the commission, planning commission?
November 14th.
Okay.
Yeah. Commission Goal 5, maintain fiscal health and long-term stability, and they say information technology, service and permitting, and the annexation strategy. Now, I don't know, I know that the annexation strategy that the City Commission is talking about is having a more cohesive process for review of annexations, rather than the piecemeal property owner proposed annexation process that we have. City can't necessarily, you know, go out and annex property on its own without meeting all kinds of other state requirements, but we can certainly, through our public works facilities master planning, help prioritize where it makes sense to annex at a certain amount of time, having done concept planning already. But we still don't have an annexation strategy, and that's what this is about. Planning staff is not working on this right now. So, but
I
this
think
would
the,
attempt to, go ahead.
The regional mitigation opportunity is a economic development strategy for this city, and it should be something that we encourage to be listed, because there's a lot of money that's going to be available, I believe, if things work right in Clackamas Cove and we keep advancing along the waterfront with the Lower Harbor Trust Fund to make great investments in Oregon City, and that's an economic development strategy. And I don't know where it's all going to go, but I think, you know, we were involved in making that happen.
Cove. Yep. All right. Well, good work, everybody.
I have one thing I want to share. We don't have to act on it tonight, but I thought it was something I should bring at least. And I can pass it out and deal with it later if you want. Only reason is it had to do with responding to public outreach, which is one of our goals. Send this down there. And it has the fact that, by the way, your listing of all our accomplishments here, which is wonderful. I don't think I saw the bus tour listed.
It's on there.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay, what year was that? A long time ago.
Gosh.
2011, 12.
2000.
David Frazier just had his baby because he went on it with his little baby, or met us at the bus, little baby girl.
Okay, so it was October 5th, 2013.
Okay.
Fall Legacy and Heritage Foliage Bus Tour.
Yeah. So what this is, and we don't have to include this tonight, but I just felt I would like to see this committee really get out in front and do some things. We have walking tours called ghost tours. I've been on them, they're good, but we don't have any natural history walking tours, and I think these sites lend themselves, just as an idea, for us to consider. We have an opportunity to conduct outreach and education, and that's one of our goals. It keeps appearing, right? Mm-hmm. And if a few of us that were interested in working on this could pioneer a few routes, such as any of these, 1 hour, 2 hour, no more than that, probably things. It takes the whole burden off buses and all the complexity, you know, and you'd reach a lot more people, I think, over the year.
Yeah.
You know, the Falls Overlook is a great place to interpret the falls in a general way, but nobody's talking about the mass of water that comes over there, particularly, and the two river concept, upper and lower Willamette, and the gorge beyond it, where the river cut through in Ice Age floods, and John Lewis stewarded a bunch of Ice Age flood cuts for us up in the public works area. They're up there, flow channels that were carved out. And so I just feel like we could be lead in several areas. The promenade walk, that's a simple route relatively. These are just conceptual. Falls Overlook would be stationed ourselves there. Those that wanted to, we'd have to figure out when we could do this for a 2 hour stint. Maybe the first Saturday of each month, for instance. River Natural History Walk from John Storm Park on down to the confluence of the Clackamas and Willamette, up to at least the 1990 bridge or beyond, and then Clackamas Cove is, you know, now I haven't even included any upland areas here. The college would be a great route. College, you know, senior high school interface with the wetlands up there and all that. I don't know. This is a first.
And the ELC.
Huh?
And
And ELC, right.
I like the idea. Kind of get people more engaged,
Yeah.
maybe in some specific instances of, like I said, history or.
I think these are eligible for tourism funding too. They have a new grant program, which I'm looking at seriously, in the county, $1,000, if you've got an idea for a tourism function. It could be an event, could be a tour, could be helping promote something you're doing, an event, whatever. And we could probably get some assistance in marketing, one, through them, and two, help us with whatever kind of costs would be required with promotional flyers, unless you guys want to do it. But I think this would be a real way to show our flag of who we are, those that want to do this. So we can discuss this at our next meeting if you'd like,
Sure.
regular meeting.
I mentioned that, so related to the William Falls Legacy Project, that this is, the quarterly newsletter just came out,
Okay,
October 2016.
okay.
Snail mail?
No, I
Oh.
don't think so. I just printed it. I wish. Save the date. Riverwalk Design Alternatives Presentation and Workshop, Thursday, November 17th.
Okay.
Time has come, see and discuss the design alternatives for the Riverwalk. Bring the whole family to this fun, interactive event and participate in the Riverwalk design. More details on the website, rediscoverthefalls.com. And so,
Will you send us a
Time and
reminder?
place,
Can you send us a
TBD.
reminder?
yeah.
Okay.
I like you on that, yeah.
Right away.
Time and place TBD on the 17th.
Yeah.
You're where?
They haven't said where yet.
Oh, I see,
But it's
yeah.
on the 17th.
Oh, okay.
And yeah,
I
it's,
think they're looking for a venue still. So-
Let's do it by jet boat, cover jet boat. We just did a cover jet boat tour, went really well.
Now, have we announced openings to the public in terms of this NRC?
NRC, yeah, we put an article in the Trail News, as well as Willamette Falls TV has a little thing going out, and they did a press release for all of the various committees. So I was able to get
we have
a,
openings, huh?
pardon?
Do we have openings?
Yeah, anybody's
have
turn is.
some
Oh,
term
yeah, yeah,
limitations.
Yeah, anybody-
but
anybody's turn
You
is.
can reapply for your position.
Jerry.
But be sure to do so.
Well, I don't know who's terminal, I don't know where I'm.
You
at.
are.
you are.
I'm away.
Yeah, you're
You're
terminated.
not going away.
No,
You
no.
better read,
The
Jerry.
thing is that you.
Read
Re-
your
reapply.
email.
Yeah, reapply.
And, and
Oh, I just
Ginger.
did that last year. Was it a 1-year term?
No,
Holiday
No, I
appointed
don't
me.
think so. I think there's two.
is that right?
Dan Holiday appointed me.
When?
Well, last year. I had to go through a review last year, so did Brian Boyce, and he decided to drop off.
Okay, okay. We better check our list and
Yeah.
see if it's.
I thought, yeah, once we got through the initial 1-year terms, after 2011, they went to 3 years. So I'll have to check, Jerry, and see.
Yeah, whatever.
I'll check.
if I'm-
Did his station change?
But it's
Because
not,
No.
the applicants aren't, new applicants aren't position tied. I mean, they've got two positions, they're just applying to be on it as one of the positions.
Yeah. No, Dan
Right.
came in and
Yeah.
actually interviewed me in front of all you guys,
Yeah.
with you guys, you know, too,
Right.
Yeah,
and whatever. So can we have this on the agenda for next month,
Yes,
November or something?
sure.
That's the walking tour idea.
Yeah, that's gonna be, gosh, that's coming up. That's,
when's our,
November 9th.
are we not having a meeting next month
2
because,
weeks from today.
Yeah.
or are we not having a meeting next week, I guess I should say.
We're not having a meeting next week.
Yeah,
It would be
Right.
2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from today.
2 weeks,
November 9th.
2 weeks, that's right.
Busy week.
Jerry had contacted me and I wanted to put it before this group
Oh, yeah.
to invite the co-developers to speak to us.
Okay.
You know, we had the we went down there for the presentation of the harbor fund possibilities, but, and the developer was down there, but, it might be nice if,
Okay.
we perhaps have John Runyon there at the
that'd be
same
really
time.
good, really good.
So,
Yeah.
that possibly some discussion could come out of it.
Yeah.
The other request was Commissioner Shaw, who was concerned about the boat ramp issue, and that we were not involved in that process, which we were not. That we should have at least a chance to get an update on what's going on about adjustments that maybe could be made or whatever.
Yeah, I haven't seen the location proposal yet.
Or aren't they proceeding with the replacement?
The replacement, if it's in a new location with
Yeah.
new different
Yeah,
spaces.
it's not, the replacement's a 5-year replacement.
Right,
So there's two phases. One,
okay,
I already think they have the design going forward on the replacement of the
Right.
one that was wiped out, intended to be a 5-year fix
okay,
with a longer term period for
The new location.
the new location.
all right,
And
yeah.
his concern is that, and I agree, well, I felt, one, we weren't not involved, and we should be. It's gonna involve trees and many other things, riverside habitat and all that.
Yeah, sure, the site plan.
So we'd like to see that, I'd like to see that on our agenda as soon as
Well,
possible.
they haven't applied to through land use yet.
Well, at
So-
least for an update.
Yeah, okay.
Not for the replacement even?
Not for the replacement, I think that there may be some exemptions under the
Yeah,
ordinary high water
The
mark.
work is already done, the boat ramp is fixed as much as
Right,
it's gonna get
but-
fixed.
yeah.
The
So
longer
you're talking about the
term,
future.
The future,
the longer
Yeah.
term one would be a land use action.
that would be,
with
but
natural
I'd rather
resources.
not have us wait till land use application time.
Okay,
It
It's
did
kinda
come,
like the code.
we can ask.
it came to the Parks and
Phil
Recre-
Lewis is probably getting up to speed on this,
It
right?
came to the Parks and Recreation Committee,
Okay.
and the and Recreation Committee, on at least two of their designs, it almost bisected in terms of, they were
park.
having a loop around,
Yeah.
to bring the trailers around, bisected the park.
Totally
And the Parks and Recreation did not want to have that happen.
Definitely not.
So, but maybe the designs evolved a little bit from that point, based on,
My last communication was just a reminder to Denise Conrad about the land use process.
Yeah.
And that was about a month ago.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
And by the way, there's a fundamental reason here. It's not a bad reason. The Marine Board, I talked with them personally about a number of things. We had a Marine Board grant this summer, and we restriped the boat ramp at Sportcraft and redid things at John Storm Park and a bunch of things with my youth group. But 40% of all the parking spots for all the boat ramps in this area, guess where they're at? Clackamas Park.
Mhm.
And that's why the Clackamas Park existing site has been valuable to them, because 40% of all the parking needs for any boating function aren't just at Melbourne Bar Park. They're mostly at Clackamas Park, and 80 spots at Sportcraft. The issue is there's a lot more potential at at Clackamas that they'd like to see preserved, because they don't know how they're going to park boats and trailers. The question is, how do you do this without impacting the rest of the park? I think that's what you're saying.
That's
So-
a
I'm gonna make
huge
that-
issue.
I'm going to make a suggestion that we maybe make a list of presentations that that could be met by a joint meeting of Parks and Rec and ourselves.
There you go. That's a good idea.
And those would be basically park kind of things, and that could be one of them.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Really good idea. And there's the new administrator of
Right.
that division now. I think he
Yeah,
Phil Lewis.
seems to be really open to partnerships and all that. But you know,
Yep.
But-
I've been
well, I really
talking-
want to commend you on that list of stuff. You even had how many pizzas we ate per year.
Speaking of which, take your chair on the way
Okay.
out. And I will email you our work tonight for your
Okay.
records and the Willamette Falls Legacy Project newsletter.
Pete, I want to thank you very much.
Yes, I
This
did
has
too.
been a
Yes.
very productive work
Very,
session.
very productive.
I would not be surprised if we'll need a follow-up next year.
No, I think we'll need a follow-up fairly shortly.
Yeah, so, yeah.
I agree.
So with that, anything good for the order?
Thanks, guys.
Yes,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Pete.